One of the best things that has happened to me in my career is having a piece of sculpture in the permanent collection at the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. There's so much excitement circulating around the museum and its future. They've just started collecting, and I was very pleased to have a work chosen to be part of it. I named this piece Already Set in Motion. It's made of redwood, then dyed black. The tree had been blown down in a storm and had been sitting in a valley in Northern California for about 40 years, just waiting for me. I purchased it with two large sculptures in mind. The stone-like components of this piece were designed to appear as out of balance as possible. It was necessary to make sure that the piece would be stable, but I made an effort for it to seem to be on the verge of cascading down. The design aspects of making a piece like this are the most enjoyable part for me. It's hard to be spontaneous with a chainsaw, so you have to plan things out carefully and be sure when you make a cut. I wanted the components to appear random with sort of a destructive choreography to them. The chainsaw is the perfect tool to make a work like this. It's very direct and aggressive. Removing material is immediate, and it leaves a nice texture on the surface. Making the cuts come out on the back side like they are on the front is the hardest part. And making a 10-foot high work can be challenging just to reach the area where the cutting needs to be done. My friend Stoney Lamar and I talk about how an artist has to tool up when making larger work. The scale changes not only how the work is perceived, but how an artist has to go about making it. Part of the reason I wanted to film the making of this work was because it is so physical, and I don't know how much longer I can do this.
It could drop. Don't get in the way. Oh, shit. You okay? You get it? I hope you got it. It almost got me. I guess it broke off.
The physicality of making the work is another aspect of how the design and the form merge, and how essential the mental and physical components are in making things. Barbara Hepworth talked about her concept of truth to materials, about the special relationship between the hand of the artist and the material used to make their artwork. The physical intensity involved in making this sculpture translates into the energy that the design offers and heightens the precarious nature of the work. The subtractive process of carving wood adds another thing to be considered. I guess I just think in a subtractive way rather than additive. Already Set in Motion is the epitome of my Slipping Stone series. I've been making smaller work in this series for several years. Working smaller enabled me to perfect the arrangement of the components to suggest a fluidity of movement that gave it the most tension. After having an opportunity to be around a sculptor from Wales named David Nash and watching him work, I realized I wanted to translate these smaller works into larger outdoor sculptures, something more monumental. It was interesting to experience how scale changes the way sculpture is perceived. Mostly I work within a series, making sculptures that have a similar style or look to them. Most of the series have evolved from combining aspects of nature with minimal sculptural forms. Over my career, I've done a lot of studying of sculpture from around the middle of the 20th century. Artists like Brancusi, Isamu Noguchi, Barbara Hepworth, and Louise Nevelson. Each of these artists make work that depend primarily on form, with textural qualities being secondary. My husband John has been very helpful in enabling me to deal with the scale of this work. He's very skilled at moving large, heavy things around. I would not have attempted to make work this size if he'd not encouraged me. The forklift was an anniversary present we gave to each other. It served as scaffolding and certainly helped me reach difficult areas while making the piece. Geometry has always played a major role in my work. The interplay of angles and planes and the effects of light and shadow are aspects that increase the visual suggestion of imminent collapse.
There it goes.
The Slipping Stone series developed from two inspirational sources. The first was Marcel Duchamp's painting from 1916 called New Descending a Staircase. The implied motion and the jogged cubist features in this painting are the essential elements for the Slipping Stones. The second inspiration for this series was a stone that I found on our property. It was split with crevices in several places and looked like it was on the verge of breaking apart. The energy of Duchamp's painting and of this stone is something that I've tried to capture when designing the Slipping Stones. It felt like a puzzle making all the pieces fit together, but going about it backwards, cutting away the excess. This series is deceiving because it looks precarious and because it looks assembled when it's actually carved from a solid piece of wood rather than constructed. Leaving lots of negative space was necessary as the piece of wood was so massive. I wanted it to seem light and loose in form, not weighed down and heavy. The open spaces were a bit of a challenge to remove, but also part of the fun as the piece developed. It's really quite a thrill to be a part of the incredible collection of work that's being gathered at Crystal Bridges Museum. When we went up to talk to them about where the sculpture would be situated, we found a spot that was near the front door and has some great landscaping around it. I couldn't be happier with the location and how it looks sitting there. The challenge was getting the work from the parking lot down to the concrete slab where it would sit. They needed a huge crane just because the distance was so great, not because of the weight of the piece. I wanted to make sure that it was lifted from the base, so we put blankets on it and rigged it up at home, put it on our trailer, and brought it up to Bentonville. I wanted to be directly involved with the process, so I was issued a hard hat and climbed up the ladder to hook it all up. The nerve-wracking part of the day was when they got the sculpture up into the air and just let it hang up there for so long. I kept hoping it wouldn't fall on someone. The crew there couldn't have been better. They did all the hard work attaching it to the slab and drilling the holes. I was really nervous about the entire event, but things went smoothly with no problems. I was just glad to get it back down on the ground. It's very satisfying to make something on this scale and know that it's in such good hands that it will be preserved into the future. The opportunity for it to be viewed by art lovers for years to come is exhilarating. I feel very fortunate that something I've created is deemed worthy of preservation. Not many people have that kind of opportunity.